Okay, Mr. Grimes, Carmelo Anthony, go.
Tragic situation. Waiting to find out specifics. Um, don't think that things happen the way media wants us to believe.
Explain.
Meaning that I think that the media can sometimes slant situation where uh, somebody always looks like they're more of the villain than the victim. And I think in this particular situation, uh, that's the case with Carmelo Anthony. I'm just seeing how they're painting from the beginning, seeing how they had painted him as this savage, um, uncivilized young person with no direction, uh, you know, who just happened to have an altercation and stab a young white male in the chest, who was supposedly a bright athlete, stellar student, and this, that, and the third. And come to find out, as you read deeper and do a little more research, that that's not the case. That Carmelo Anthony comes from an intact family who lives in Frisco. He is a model. He was a model student, an athlete. Other prior interactions in terms of the law, looked upon by his friends as being a stand-up guy. So I'm looking at that, looking at the social media hype, uh, just doing a little more in-depth study and research on him as a person. And you come to find out there's some contradiction, right? Um, as opposed to what's the young man's name? The
Victim.
one he stabbed. What's the name?
I, I don't know.
It'll come to me in a few minutes. Something to find out. Mother father divorce hadn't been together for a while. The young man had, and his brother has a history of kind of bullying folks. Not as much of a stand-up guy as the media has painted him to be. And one of those situations where they thought that they could take advantage of somebody who supposedly was not supposed to be in the tent of the track team, and the guy wasn't even running track. The
The
one who
victim.
was stabbed wasn't even running track. He was just at the meet with his friends, his buddies. But that's not how the media was painted, right? So, um, some would say uh, classic media spin on making folks look a lot worse than what they really are.
How
And
is
of
this?
course,
How is this any different than the Trayvon Martin situation?
in terms of how they spin certain things, I don't think there's that much difference.
Well,
Uh,
in Trayvon Martin's case, they said that what was the gentleman's name? The guy that killed him? Who?
Zero,
Zimmerman.
yeah,
They said that he had the right to stand his ground against Trayvon Martin,
yes,
though he approached Trayvon.
yes,
But Trayvon didn't have the right to stand his ground against Zimmerman approaching
yes,
him.
yes,
So we're in a state where defense weapons are the probably most protected amendment in the state, be it gun, knife, rifle, whatever, the right to bear arms, not the right to bear guns, right to bear arms, items to
right,
defend yourself, right?
right,
Um, he was in a place that there is no evidence that he wasn't supposed to be.
right,
There is no evidence that the young man who tried to push him from where he was, literally put hands on him, he warned that he had a weapon and would use it. Per the facts that I'm hearing, obviously I wasn't there. And he used said weapon. The young man that had his mother drop him off at the Black Lives Matter incident that shot those Black Lives Matter people.
Iowa Rittenhouse.
Yes, the conservatives raised a healthy sum of money in his defense to ensure that, you know, he was protected in the legal process. Yet
Yes.
we have, and he was not where he was supposed to be, quote unquote. Um, and he was engaging in dangerous activity in a place that he had no specific reason to be there.
Yes.
Unlike this young man who had a specific reason to be where he was because he's a member of the school.
Yes.
The person who was trying to eject him had no authority to eject him. And upon being instructed to leave him alone, physically put hands on him. That's assault, right? Battery is a harmful, offensive touching. He actually touched him, so we have an assault, we have battery. Okay. Now, at this point, the gentleman is also there with his brother. So I don't know if he knew that was his brother or what the case was, but this is now a perceived situation of a 2-on-1. And this was not, from what I understand, this is a one shot and down situation. It wasn't a vicious attack or anything like that. It was get off me, bam, and that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
How is, in this post-racial America, where we do not have racism as a problem, and the white power structure has been dismantled, and that we live as equal citizens, and white people don't think about racism, even though it's the Deep South. That was a long time ago. How do we have this imbalance in perception of law, circumstance, and outcome? What say you, sir?
I think that this goes back for me to how we still perceive people, how we perceive how we perceive race and gender and class. So I would have to, although this is supposedly a post-racial environment that we live in, there's still some remnants of racial injustice or inequities that still exist. And until we actually address those, I don't think anything is post-racial. I think everything is a continuation of that which came before it. Given the fact that even in education, we've steered away from conversations in response to race, um, and which I've been directly affected by because the classes in which I taught dealt with history, which of course history is going to deal with race and racial construct and racial economic construct and how we've actually gotten here. So when you start connecting the dots, you start to find out if there's similarities in one era of time, you still see those patterns of similarities, even going back from slavery to Jim Crow, civil rights movement to today. You still see some of the same remnants left. You have to ask yourself the question: do we live in a post-racial uh, era? And if we do, then how is it any more different than what happened? I mean, yeah, there's some stark differences between, you know, how race relations were during, 1860s and Jim Crow and the civil rights movement. However, there's still some shades or remnants that still remain in response to um, disadvancement in terms of education, in terms of disproportionality, in terms of economic systems and the judicial systems. You still see those shades of disproportionality.
Is there
And
a difference? Is there a difference between the lost cause, the rewriting of the southern perspective of the Civil War? Are you familiar with that? Where they
yeah,
said
yeah,
it was over states' rights.
yes,
Slaves were happy. Slave owners were nice to the slaves. Okay, that was institutionalized after the Civil War as a way to reunite Northern whites and Southern whites, where that narrative was allowed to become pervasive in education and carried through by the daughters of the Confederacy.
right,
Because that made America feel better. It made,
yes.
okay. Is there any difference in that in Reconstruction and the federal mandate by Trump on American history, particularly with the Smithsonian, most particularly with the Smithsonian of African American history? Is there any different of this re-representation, misrepresentation, or redacted representation of American history from Reconstruction to now? Is that the is it the same thing?
I would say it's the same thing. I would think it is a more I'm not going to say covert way of marginalizing and minimalizing folks and their experiences, right? If you don't teach it, how can you know? If you don't teach it, if you don't, folks don't talk about it, then how would you know that it's happening, right? I think those are the building blocks for more egregious types of behaviors in the long run. And so the question becomes, do they do that in terms of returning back to the way things were
Oh,
a
make
hundred years ago?
America great again. So we're
Okay,
returning back.
right,
But
right,
I have another question for you.
yes.
What is the very specific interest in making sure American whites do not know American history?
Um, that is, I'm not gonna say it's a vague understanding. I think that once you paint people a certain way, that allows them to fit into certain boxes that either exist or has existed or continues to exist. And I
Are you
think when
saying their perception of other people or their perception of themselves?
I think it's both. I think we mirror each other, right? The way we see ourselves actually is through other folks. Uh, and
Okay,
so if
so
I could,
if how does that relate to teaching you a redacted American history? What folk am I seeing different? White folk, black folk, native folk? Who am I seeing different? What is the point?
I don't think it's a matter of seeing anything differently. I think it's a matter of reinforcing that which already exists.
What is that?
If we know if we know that um, our customs, culture, our economic systems, our educational systems, or whatever, are based upon um, uh, white standards, then I think what we do is we reinforce that which we already know. In education, the standard in education, the dominant teacher and lower ed, I'm gonna say lower ed, is typically white, female, middle class. That's the average teacher in American society in terms of teachers are concerned. So that's the view you're gonna get. That's the view that is projected. That's the view that is put in front of most folks.
Let's try a thought process because I think if Black people will get out of our own way, there may be something bigger at play. What I don't want us to do is to make the same mistake that we made with the civil rights, because civil rights was something we took personally.
Okay.
And that was why we tried to have a civil outcome, because we took the abuse personally. When it was a system of economics that was established by Dr. Martin Luther King, the Black Power movement, everybody found that out. Ultimately, this was an economic issue. Racism is an economic system. It's not a social system. It has social aspects to create the economic outcome. So if we take ourselves out of it, if we take out, they're trying to make us less than, and say, okay, we're only 12% of the population. Is it really worth it? What's the bigger end game? What if the bigger end game is the biggest workforce has, for most of the country's history, and just almost all of the country's modern history, has been poor white people. Mm-hmm. And if I don't teach you the systems of the country, I will always keep you in the working class.
Right.
So it's less for them to stay divided from us, though that is a given plus. But it's more for them not to become educated to how the system works and has worked. So when I say I'm doing this referendum on education, you were never taught about the lost cause, so you don't know that. When Trump was running the first time and he was saying he was the law and order president, well, you don't know the Southern strategy with Nixon and know that he was repeating that word for word. When he says, I'm going to pay a Caribbean country to take our prisoners, you don't know that that is what Abraham Lincoln did in 1862. So if I don't teach you this stuff, I can keep running these same games on you.
Yes.
I can do convict leasing. And you say, well, that's just Black people. That's not a problem. No, because I didn't teach you in Reconstruction. Yes, we did it to Black people in 1865, but we did it to white people in 1877. So I'm thinking there is a bigger game afoot with the largest slaveocracy, which is poor whites.
Yes.
And if the less they know, the more you can extract from them, because it's more of them. They're just 12% of the population.
And I think that's what Booker T tried to do in trying to galvanize white support during his Atlanta convention. Knowing that, look, we can run this machine if y'all just jump on board with us and see the economic benefits of what this looks like. But of course, you had the boy on the other, or the boys on the other end saying, no, we need to separate ourselves and create our own stability. And having those two combatants theoretically,
I have a great book about that dynamic, Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois.
Right.
Great book.
Right.
It was actually the other way around. W.E.B. Du Bois was W.E.B. Du Bois. I'll start with Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington was a Pan-Africanist. He was working with the president to get the different presidents to get stuff fixed in Africa.
Right.
He realized that your hometown would become what it was if they left Black folks alone.
Right. Right.
So he said, don't buck the system. This can work in our favor. All of our protection is in one place. All of our resources are in one place. And we are the artisans of the last 200 years. Their money has to come to us to get the best work. Now, he knew how to politic at a level that we weren't used to. He
Mm-hmm.
could extract money from the white power structure, but he never gave it back.
Right.
W.E.B. Du Bois, on the other hand, every president for the first 24 years of the NAACP was white.
Mm-hmm.
Every time he supported a political candidate, they were white. He was very color coded in his mindset because
Right.
I am the prototype of darkness to be in the NAACP or the talented 10.
Right.
It was always fairer skinned black people.
Yes.
And
The bourgeois.
ultimately, yes, and it was actually W.B. Du Bois's students who did a lot of the history of Booker T. Washington that gave this misunderstanding of Booker T. Washington as being
Right.
a person that went along with the system of oppression and functioned within it, where some parts of that is true, but it is purposely misarticulated.
But
So
I think that's the ploy of education, or those who control the message, right? Because it, it's actually we tend to look at Booker T as the reverse. We tend to look at Booker T, at least how I was taught, right? We tend to
okay,
look at Booker T as this. I'm going this yes sir,
yes,
master.
yeah, use the
Yeah,
sellout.
we're
That's
gonna go
what.
along. We're gonna go along to get along without understanding the bigger picture, right?
But
I would,
a lot of that comes from the narratives that were written by Du Bois's students. Du Bois
right.
lived a lot longer than him.
Yes, he
So our
did.
education told us that. But,
Yes,
Du Bois did the same thing to Garvey. He became the watchdog of the people that paid him. Booker T. Washington didn't do that. Booker T.
right.
Washington was like, yo, hey, wait a minute. Why don't you help them? Hey. Give us some money. We'll build it ourselves.
Yes,
Give it to us. But he
yes,
never put it back. They used W.E.B. Du Bois to end the Garvey movement in America and ultimately break it down worldwide.
mm,
They
mm,
used him to control the NAACP and keep Black resistance off of the streets and in the courts because they controlled the courts.
right.
So ultimately, if you know the story of W.E.B. Du Bois, he left the country. I
Yeah, he
believe
did.
he
He
I
did.
believe he died in Ghana. He just said,
Yeah,
you cannot get a fair shake. I tried to
you
do
can't.
everything they
No,
told me. He
right.
functioned under that moral suasion of if I can show you, then your morality will align with reality.
Right.
But he was appealing to an immoral group.
Yes.
Moral suasion does not work. We go all the way back to Frederick Douglass. These are the people. This is the group of people that we're appealing to that enslaved Frederick Douglass, enslaved Booker T. Washington, left W.E.B. Du Bois in exile, murdered all of the civil rights leaders, um, cre- declared war on Black America, the war on drugs. Do you know the war on drugs is technically in history a real war? In Vietnam
Yes.
and the Cold War are not real war. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
The president actually declared war in the war on drugs.
Mhm.
No one declared war in Vietnam. No one declared war in the Cold War.
Right.
Yet, do we get a chapter in any textbook about the war on drugs? A declared war.
They declared war. Now, Again, again, if you can control the mindsets, the earlier you can control the mindsets, the more people feed into these narratives that are basically don't exist, or they are hyperbolic, or they're so far fetched. Again, I've seen history books change. I've seen the contents change
We're old enough.
as and I've seen them change. And so it amazes me how um you'll see something in one textbook, and it's like, okay, who really decides to make the decision not to keep that in there, right? It's benefit. And then you see the constructors of the textbooks, and they may be people of various colors, right? Which gives the notion to think, okay, there must be some equity and fairness in how the information is disseminated, research disseminated, and put in the text. That's the assumption, right? But
Why
it's
would
not.
yeah, why would that be? We have always had house Negroes, we had field Negroes. We have people who carry the water of conservatism. We have people who carry the water of liberalism. We have very few independent thinkers. So, no, just because you're my color don't make you my kind.
Yes.
So we we are used to, from Malcolm X told us this. We are used to the white power structure getting someone who looks like us to say what they want to see.
Yeah.
Right now we have what's that gentleman's name that was talking about Jason Whitlock, that was saying Jason Whitlock is um a token for conservative America, to say
That's Stephen A. That's not Stephen A. Is it?
no, 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 no. This is a white guy. He said he's actually mad that
He's a commentator. He's a sports commentator.
uh no, he's one of those pundits. Oh, what is the guy's name? Oh, Nick Fuentes.
Nick Fuentes. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently at one time he
Proud Boys member. Was he a Proud Boys member?
I don't know what he was, but he's one of those I'm not racist but people. And for some reason, he and Jason Whitlock got wires crossed. And
Yeah.
he was saying that the only reason why Jason Whitlock has a job is because um, he's funded by the conservatives. And that way they get said what white people think, but they can't say. And
Okay.
my point was, where is the where is this outcry of non-racist whites when they hear that? Where is that?
Mm.
Because if we live in this post-racial society, where is this uproar when they're being misrepresented by
Right.
someone saying that's what white people think? And he said, I don't have the big show you have. And the only reason why you have it, I don't have the money that you have. I don't have these things. And I'm jealous that you can say it and I can't. He actually said that. Nick Fuentes. Look
Yeah.
it up when you get a
Yeah.
chance.
He did. No, I remember. Well, somebody was doing a commentary, and he made that particular statement
Yeah.
because he's been kicked off a lot of platforms that do support Jason Whitlock, or the assumption is they do support him and not
Mhm.
support um Nick Fuentes anymore,
Right.
right?
Right. So
So
we've
there,
always
there
had
is
a Candace Owens in the world. We've always
yeah,
had a Jason Whitlock in the world.
always
A the Peterson guy. I don't even think he believes that stuff. I
right.
really don't. I really
Oh,
don't think that he believes that.
Jesse
Huh?
Jesse Lee,
Jesse Jesse Peterson, is that his name?
Jesse Lee, yeah, Jesse
Yeah.
Lee.
I don't think he believes that. I really don't. I know that a brother from the nation was on his show,
Yeah.
and he
Ate him,
said the
ate
only
his lunch. Yeah.
yeah he said I only came on here because I didn't think you really believed, and he said everybody he believes. I I don't think anybody can grow up because he's older than me.
Oh yeah, yes.
He grew up in the segregated South, I believe
Yes.
Alabama, and he will say that there is no racism and that racism is made up and that blacks are begging for whatever. And my issue with people like Candace Owens, with Jason Whitlock, with all the senator from Florida, the other guy
Uh
that
yeah, I know you're
you
talking
know
about
who I'm talking about.
but he's running for governor, wants to run for governor.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
then the other bald guy who just humiliates himself trying to appeal to Trump, the black guy.
Yes. Yeah.
Those people, this is my only issue. You always fall on the same side when it's dealing with black people. There's never a situation where you say, no, this black person was right. Or, yes, historically, this is a fact. And I was doing some videos on this zero sum politics, racial ideology, economic. If you get anything, I get nothing. If I agree with anything you say, I have to agree with everything you say.
Everything you say.
If I disagree with anything you say, I have to disagree with everything you say.
Yeah.
How can I be a conservative or a liberal before you ask me the question? It's some things I'm pretty liberal on.
Yeah. Some
There
things
are
I'm
other
not.
things
That
I'm
I'm not.
a conservative on.
You can say yes.
But I identified myself on a side of an equation before you asked me the question, and I never take the side. I never say, well, you know what, liberals got a good point. I support this. Just a case in point. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal either, but um, I am definitely not in Donald Trump's support. Um, I do not like his referendum on American history.
Right.
But there is a clause in there that I agree with about putting back all of the Confederate statues, flags, memorabilia that
Right.
were removed. I don't think anything should be censored if it is verifiable American history.
Right.
So I can look at a policy of a group that I don't personally align with and say, I agree with this, I don't agree with that. But we have these people that have been propped up in American society. And I don't know how anyone, including white people, can take them seriously because your take is predictable based on who it is.
Right.
If it's black folk, Candace Owens is quicker to say, I agree or disagree with Donald Trump than she is to say, this black person was probably white. Unless that person is a radical conservative.
Like she, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
Yes.
if it is just a issue in the public and black people look at it's a black person involved, it's a white person involved. Unless they are a radical conservative, it is a guarantee. Jason Whitlock, Jesse Peterson, Candace Owens, and the rest of those MAGA politicians
Elder.
are definitely going to be on the side, whatever the negative side is of black people. And it doesn't matter if it's reparations, it doesn't matter if it's policing, it doesn't matter if it's economics. It is always black folks are wrong. I don't understand why Candace Owens is even allowed on mainstream black media. Just why? I mean,
we always gotta have a villain, right? And to me, it's easier to villainize us than it is a lot of white folks. Because we automatically think you should be thinking like that anyway.
but
Get,
she's being welcomed on these things.
of course she
She's
is.
being welcomed on, it's not, okay, we're about to take you to task. It's Candace. What's going on with you? What are your
She
thoughts
pulls
about
ratings. She
this?
pulls ratings, Doc. She pulls ratings. Come on, man. She makes you
I
show.
I I understand that, but there was an occurrence that happened at my job that I was letting some of the 30-year-old young people at work,
Uh-huh.
letting them know about us being on code.
Okay.
We have to be, at some point, we have to be on code. I know Jewish people that do not practice their religious portion of them being Jewish, but just by
But
their nationality,
that's right.
if there is something that is happening concerning Jewish people, they're
They
on
don't.
code.
Yes, you're exactly right.
They
But
are
Doc,
on code.
we used to be that way. We
So
used to
what
be
now?
that way. We used to
Talk to
be
me.
that way.
Talk to me.
And I say that there was an interview done by I forgot who did the interview, but they were interviewing Don Cornelius, right? And you can go YouTube this. Don Cornelius, they asked him a question about somebody. He said, I'm not gonna speak on that because I'm not gonna speak against my people in front of white people. And he shut the interview down.
Did you see that
Muhammad Ali. Muhammad
in
Ali had an
Fly
interview.
with
Yeah, yes, yes.
as I'm
I
just
forgot what
about to
show it
bring
was.
that up.
He said, brother,
But
he said, I'm not gonna, that's what they want. Now I'm not gonna do that. But
right.
I said, well, that's what I want. Then don't say, he said, hey man, I'm trying to give you a way out. I'm not gonna speak on